What's good? Right before I know it, I am gonna be studying horror for the rest of the year. So, how did this all happen? I ended up stuck with two horror stories, and I think I'm gonna need like a little bit of guidance just to make sure that it is just peak horror. The best that I can be. So, I guess like why did I get all into this horror stuff? Funny enough, I think I've been exposed to it all my life cuz especially my dad is into horror movies. That'll be the thing to watch in his spare time, and so are my cousins as long as I can remember. Why did I watch them? Because there is some families that believe that any time that you can do at home, any quality time, anything, whatever, can always be family time, right? I know. So, indeed. So today, at the time that I've been talking about this with everybody that's going to be online for anyone to see, I have just done discussed all my takes on horror stuff and hearing other takes on horror related stuff. And um, so I one of the things I do like is, I guess I gotta answer this question out. What is my favorite horror book? I will have to say, for certain, as far as I'm aware about myself, is my favorite horror book is It by Stephen King. I guess we have to go book podcast account. It was Welcome to Night Vale until it kind of derailed into that sort of stuff, if it counts. And movie, it is A Nightmare on Elm Street, the 1984 original. Now that every time I think about it, it gets me shook, as much as I hate to admit. And what else? I still consider New Nightmares the real A Nightmare on Elm Street sequel. If you know, you know. And I guess people are always guessing just what would be my favorite horror game, because it seems like I've dabbled more often than not into horror games. And yeah, another thing, and it's easy to assume that my favorite horror game is Resident Evil because I have plenty of friends who are also into Resident Evil, and I got like a family friend, another cousin that is also into Resident Evil. Haha. I know what is wrong with the cousins. Nah, nothing. They just want to spend a bunch of quality time together. Anyway, and so you guys can stop guessing, because, and this is what I said for sure. It's gonna sound very weird saying this, but my favorite horror game is Lollipop Chainsaw. And for once, I think I got no dead silence. Bunch of agree, relate, totally. Yeah. Great take. Key point. Whatever. So, now that we get into all the, oh man, I'm probably seen this cutscene way too many times. Might burn in my memory. And funny enough, right before I went to MomoCon for my birthday in Atlanta, Georgia, I actually bought the game Lollipop Chainsaw Repop and just played it, and it just felt like it was like a cakewalk. Probably not to most of you or some of you, but definitely to me. I've been playing this since I was young, and like about 15 years by now, for sure. Yep. See, this is like the OG mode, even though it's nightmare mode. So yeah, and I maybe, yeah, like I said, it's probably an unconventional take to make, but what can I say? Female representation. It's kind of hard to come by, like then and now, and it's very fun to play. But I digress. So thankfully, another crazy thing I did, probably about a month by now, if Letterbox Noob is anything to go by. Thank God I finally caved and gone to that site, because all of these horror movies that were shared along are recent. and I wouldn't have known anything about them. Funny enough, Weapons was also released recently, and it's been blowing up on Letterboxd and whatever. All right, pretty cool. I'll eventually watch it when I'm fashionably late to the party. So, but, thankfully, I got to see. I finally watched Get Out, and I do agree that's really good. I really gotta catch up and on all that. Maybe I can watch Us, Nope, and Him by the time that I do. But but another very awesome thing to discuss about now is the main question is like overall, what is the appeal of horror? Because horror is all subjective and a unique concept in a genre on its own. For a very, I guess I'm going to say a very one specific reason. Horror is defined by the feeling that incites you when you join the experience of it. So, there's so many questions, there's so many things that can happen in a horror movie. And if I had to answer the question, and I'd have to say I'm kind of a horror noob. I mean, maybe I'm not considered a horror noob, but I think I'm a noob. I'm not like one of those people that are in the clubs or fan stuff or even watch stuff when the latest thing comes out. Definitely not that person. But it's pretty cool if you do. So I had a point somewhere. Yes, so if I had to describe horror, I'd say the appeal of what makes horror work as a concept its own is the common factor I see in all of these horror related medium that I dive into, whether it is books, video games, movies, podcasts, TV shows, and comic books, anything you can think of, even web media. It seems like the one common factor that I notice is the phenomenon, the emotion that instills, caused by the fear of the unknown. And if you ask me, if I had to define it or elaborate, horror main primary goal is to exploit the fear of the unknown as much as it can. You gotta really think. Not, you can't just sit there and summarize and explain something to someone when you have to be so specific about your whole point. What I mean is the fear of the unknown. There's even a quote, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. The fear of the unknown, just think about it. What do you see coming? If you knew it was coming, would you have joined it? And it seems very interesting. The fourth wall is a magical concept, no matter how many times fictional characters try to break it nowadays. While we, the audience, are there observing the fourth wall, screaming how it's so predictable and boring, in the fictional characters' world, it's definitely not. They don't know better. And even though God has played an unfair poker game, the audience that enjoys it knows it and knows and just wants to see them triumph low key. So it's pretty fun. Yeah, gonna learn about all kinds of monsters too. And funny enough, I to me, like reading literature, fictional literature specifically, and watching fictional movies, even though eventually I do have to like summarize, explain, criticize, analyze, and cite and quote, and be eloquent and professional overall, until I get to that part where I have to do the actual work and put in the actual effort, because I have to make things I have to produce a medium, a fictional piece, a form of entertainment 3 times greater than my male counterpart, a content creator or online persona, online figure, whatever. The whole point is that it doesn't feel like work until I have to eventually execute it. It's not just the idea, and it's not just the beginning and the ending. It's the and then another silly quote, another cliche quote I might say, or some of you may know, it's not about the journey, or it's not about the destiny. It's the journey. And that and huh, interesting, right? So I guess this is the part where that the goal for the horror is to answer my question, why should I care? Yes, nothing that deep, nothing that personal. And I think it's going to be very fun to discuss the appeal of horror, and maybe this can help with the fictional stories I plan to work on. Uh I'm a little nervous too about that cuz yeah, there's that, because believe it or not, I don't really have need to say goodbyes because it seems like I'm going to see the same people in about a month anyway, and that actually happened with the first version of this first story, Forbidden, if you know. No, maybe not. Yeah, that's definitely been changed. And I'm already thinking of ideas. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I know I mainly said it was a horror story, but that was because, I'll be honest, that was the primary idea, but it was originally meant to be a horror comedy. And thanks to you, the comedy part was not something that people were all into. And so it's eventually going to get rewritten to be a little more serious horror instead of the horror comedy. So those people who assume that the younger generation has gone soft, it's definitely not true. When I looked at this feedback, I was really thinking, what is wrong with you guys? I think Attack on Titan has really like made you like want some horror or some terror in some way. That just speculation, no proof whatsoever. That's definitely changing, and that's gonna be something else, right? Great. So, and this is the part where I mentioned that horror video games, definitely the thing to do. So, for the first 7 years I was alive, I was an only child. But, so I was actually the youngest sibling for all my cousins. Why? Why me? Now, for the past 20-ish years, I have, have been through the middle child experience with none of the benefits. So I definitely understand why you want to be among someone's shadow. I would know. I mean, and funny enough, in my teen years, I was always being compared to Rosanna Pansino. When the worst part and the best part about this, I wasn't even offended because that wasn't even the worst thing that I could have been called. And I'm not talking about being called a buddy. I mean, I seriously kind of wonder where people keep getting the mix up from. And as fun as it is to be aware of that, I don't hate Rosanna whatsoever. I'm just I would say, somebody needs to care in some way. So I guess part of me is kind of wondering, like, how can I stand out on my own besides? And I can't even do like that one gag where we all sit on someone's shoulders and wear a long trench coat and pretend to be one person just to whatever, like that little One Rascals scene. But because that she still would be, people would still remember that regardless, with her more than me, because I'm the tall one out of the both of us. So yeah, it was very fun. I get kind of lost in these times, and it's pretty much because I don't watch TV and I refuse to watch ads for they're way too long. I mean, I don't watch premium cable anymore. It's mostly been streaming services and online stuff. I know, it's just more convenient that way, and it's free. So, I'm seriously sitting here, like, having this exchange, like, cause Omari's pretty good. These are the takes. And so is Little Nightmares and Resident Evil, even though that's old school to some people. I like it though. Silent Hill, quite a number. Slender Man, a bunch of stuff. Effective horror, probably. All that good stuff. So, yeah, it's very interesting, right? Horror has pretty much become its own monster. Ha ha ha. But that is going to be very interesting. Yeah, because the second story I'm going to do is gonna be a little more like in the monster side of things. It's gonna be fun to explore that. And I know plenty of you are kind of guessing what it could be. And that's the thing. I'm a little nervous myself because it's really something I thought would be pretty cool to do, the whole concept, and something that may or may not be as explored or does not want to be touched upon. But that's, maybe I do need some guidance. Maybe I should stop being a noob that's just going on intuition. Because sometimes intuition can only do so much for anything. And yeah, so it's pretty interesting. And even if you don't, like, even if you know everything and have experienced everything and know the structure and all that, sometimes you just need a bit of old school, classic, revolutionary stuff to inspire you and see, and, you know, not just to copy off or whatever, but to learn, why does it work? What made it work for you? What made it work for other people? Why do we love being scared to death? Why? That's the whole thing. No matter what, even if you don't read, even if you don't have time to watch movies, even if you just are a comic book geek, we love being scared to death, or nearly scared to death, and live and just to flex about it. So, like I said before in my little update, I am willing to learn. I always try to see why people like a specific thing, and if doesn't like one thing doesn't have to stay in one thing, and another thing can be revived or like just turned over its head and all that stuff. And maybe there's a lot of thought that I don't believe that nothing is done for no reason. There's, like, you put it in there, you took time, and the whole concept, the whole idea. So going off the top of my head, it's very obvious, but I just believe that by learning a bunch of stuff that is probably slept on before we know it, it's gonna be pretty. We're probably gonna know some answers, and it's gonna be very fun. Yeah, so well, that's been a little trip down memory lane to play Lollipop Chainsaw again, and I still stand by that this is horror, even if it's not your conventional horror story. Arrow circus, arrow circus, arrow